But anyway, so I thought I'd look into this because I'm like, okay, well, how long have they been saying that these are Europe's only indigenous people? And actually not very long. The earliest I could find, I just, started looking for news articles promoting that narrative. The earliest I could find was this one from 2019. So this is not an old narrative that they've been pushing, but it is one that they have been pushing for a few years. And it's only recently when like Salon.com got wind of the idea of saying, actually, yeah, Europeans don't belong in Europe. It's like, oh, really? Then who does belong in Europe? Oh, the Asians. Brilliant. It was only the other day that I noticed this. And so I just thought we'd go through just the way that they're framing this and the sort of the arguments they're making, right? And so this was from Euronews in 2019. Who are Europe's indigenous peoples and what are their struggles? And say, oh God, I've got so many struggles.
It'd be a long list if it was real.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's Scandinavia's Samis, Greenland's Inuits. Greenland now part of Europe, apparently. Europe's indigenous peoples represent vibrant communities.
Sorry,
that's it, yeah. Yeah, that's
they really are just going to go for, they look like Indians.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And they is oppressed. The Siberian natives as well are apparently Europe's indigenous peoples. Siberia not being in Europe. Don't know why. Greenland not being in Europe. They're really
the North Pole European.
Yeah. Look at these typical Europeans. But they're vibrant communities.
Man, Europe's a bigger place than I remember.
Vibrant communities with multi-millennial histories. It's like, well, who doesn't? Like, everything in Europe is really old. Like, everything in Europe is literally thousands of years old.
Oh, wait, Americans, yeah, I forgot.
Exactly.
Who doesn't have that?
Yet they're still struggling for recognition.
This is Euronews writing this as well.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
even more ironic.
I know, it's mental, isn't it, right? So they say on the occasion of International Day of World Indigenous Peoples, which is August the 9th, just in case you didn't know, Euronews looks into these questions, right? And so they say, well, there's no universally agreed definition of what it means to be indigenous. It's like, look, there's no universally agreed definition of what a woman is, mate, all right? Just choose a working one and go with it, right? And so they're like, look, the United Nations has developed the following understanding of the term. It's like, right. Self-identification as indigenous peoples at the individual level and accepted by a community as their member. It's like,
he's one of us, lad.
Yeah. I think I'm indigenous, and he agrees. It's like, right. So who's not indigenous by that standard? I mean, there's literally anyone who declares it.
I mean, migrants and illegal aliens, foreigners who still consider themselves foreign to the place.
Exactly, but literally, like,
they're indigenous to somewhere.
Pakistani immigrants who got off the boat yesterday could be like, yeah, I'm indigenous to this place, and Ahmed agrees.
Yeah, but none of the English community would agree.
Yeah, sure, but who cares about them? They're settler colonial societies. In fact,
yes, in England.
Yeah, exactly. It's so dumb.
This town of York. It was. It's a settler colonial society. It was like
actually, it is.
Say someone from New York.
York is Jorvik, which is a Danish word.
Right, bad example.
So
I can't use find. Yeah, Svindon doesn't work either.
Swindon actually does because that's it's a Saxon town.
Well, they're also settler colonial.
Yeah, 1,500 years ago. I mean, York was 1,000 years ago, so I don't know what I'm talking about. Really.
Wales, Cornwall.
Yeah, the Welsh. Yeah, the Cornish. Yeah. Treloggan, Trevigi.
No, I don't like it.
Aberystwyth.
No,
I know it sounds weird. But anyway, so
good reason we got rid of that.
You've got to self-identify as an indigenous person and be accepted by your community. You've got to have historical continuity with pre-colonial and or pre-settler societies. It's like, okay,
what?
No, that's fine, right? Because again, like that is true. I agree that is something an indigenous person has. But like the French have got a continuity with the pre-colonial French Empire. Right? So the French are indigenous. We're indigenous. Everyone's indigenous by
The
this.
Americans are indigenous as well.
Well, I mean, European colonization can't really be considered pre-colonial.
Yeah, but I don't buy that pre-colonial some kind of subsequent need to be indigenous.
It's just what the UN think.
Well,
right, but strong link to territories and surrounding natural resources. So yeah.
Who doesn't know that?
Yeah, obviously.
Waste time.
Distinct social, economic, or political systems. Yeah. Obviously.
Strong link.
Everyone has a distinct social system. That's why we say it's their culture and that culture and the other culture. That's how we differentiate them from being something else. The Welsh culture is not the same as English culture.
This doesn't even work for, still colonies. I mean,
No.
Gibraltar has its own distinct culture, even though it's part of us.
It's not a settler colonial society now. Well done, Gibraltans.
Spanish reeing.
Distinct language, culture, and beliefs, and they form non-dominant groups in society. And that seems to be the important thing. Non-dominant groups. So it's the kind of intersectional.
In what society? Because not country. So the Sami here,
Yeah.
within the Sami society, are the dominant group.
That's good.
So they're not indigenous.
Settler colonial Sami. I knew
There
it.
is no one who's indigenous if that last line works.
But isn't that interesting though? It is contingent on a particular kind of power relation to be treated as indigenous. Now, this isn't what a normal person would think of as what indigenous actually means. Like you know, like all like you've got a massive continent full of Indian people, but it's like, yeah, but you're the dominant majority of society, therefore you're not indigenous all of a sudden.
Plus, I know how this retard logic's going to work, which is, okay, we're not the Sami in Norway, huh?
Yeah,
See?
well, that's exactly
Well, it's
it.
like, okay, well, Norway in the whole world, like, the only one who's not indigenous now are the Chinese. Everyone else is indigenous on a global scale.
Yeah. But that's the point. This is, as you can see, to maintain a victim narrative, right? And they have to also resolve to maintain and reproduce their ancestral environments and systems as distinctive people and communities. So apart from the non-dominant groups of society, I mean, it's not getting to English representation in British society.
Bit far right, isn't it? The last one.
Yeah, it is a bit, isn't it?
Maintain and reproduce their ancestral environments and systems.
Yeah, the whole thing gets a bit far right, actually. Okay. And so they believe that, according to this very interesting definition, only the Sami, Inuits, and indigenous people of Russia, the steppe people of Russia, are indigenous to Europe. But it's like, okay, but actually none of those people are indigenous to Europe. By any metric that doesn't include the term, form non-dominant groups of society.
And again, even within their own societies, they are the dominant group. So
yeah,
BTFO'd.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to the next one, where they struggle for recognition. This is again another 2019 article on The Conversation. Oh no, sorry, this is 2016. Sorry, I misread that. But they're struggling for recognition. Europe's indigenous people. So so it goes back to 2016, not 2019. My mistake. Anyway. The Sami, known in English as Laplanders, are the only recognized indigenous people of Europe. Europeans sprung from, I don't know. No, if they sprung from the soil, that would make them indigenous. No, wait. What? Where did Europeans come from?
We're like the Spartans, I think. We just turned up and everyone is our slave. I don't know who we're enslaving because there aren't any, but...
And then we abolished slavery. So, unlike most indigenous peoples in the post-colonial world, the Sami people don't live in extreme poverty and aren't exposed to high levels of violence. From who? Who is the high level exposure? It's not like, the white colonists who are clubbing the crap out of indigenous people. No. It's not.
I don't understand.
So someone's doing all the violence, and it's not us this time. But they do have a history of colonization and discrimination and tend not to have easy relationships with the four modern states they inhabit. So they apparently established themselves as a distinct ethnic group in Scandinavia around 2,000 years ago, so we're told. Although I have to say, the timescale on this is very much up in the air because it's just nomads, like nomad pastoralists. So who knows how long they've been anywhere? Their way of life hasn't changed in a long, long time, and they may have been over there 5,000 years ago, but they turned here, but they don't know. They've got no records. They didn't build anything.
Yeah, completely pointless exercise.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is a bit up in the air. But anyway.
You might as well say, like, wow, there's Grandma. She's been here 100 years, so we've been around about 100 years.
Yeah.
That's all we can actually prove.
But they say that from the Middle Ages onwards, the Sami people were pushed further and further north because of migration into the areas they'd occupied. This led to a progressive loss of land as well as access to natural resources. One, that's just not true. It is, in fact, the opposite. The Sami have been pushing downwards from the north for the last 500 years. But it's like, okay, but so what? Like, okay, go back 500 years, right? You don't speak of like the post-Viking Norwegian kingdom as being like some settler colonial society. Again, they're just medieval Vikings in the same way that everyone's just like medieval thing.
Holy Roman Empire, a bunch of colonials.
Yeah, exactly. It just
doesn't. What does that word mean?
Exactly. But anyway, so go over to the BBC in 2019. They were Europe's only indigenous people. Thanks, BBC World Service. Whose World Service are you?
The UN's, I guess?
Yeah, well, I guess so. They say the Sami are the only indigenous people in the EU and some of their languages are on the brink of extinction. And you can just hear the howling of the Welsh and Irish, can't you? Just like, on Their language is on the brink of extinction. Their language, because they're the only indigenous. And that's why they matter as a BBC. We pay for you to tell us that we're not indigenous. We're Welsh colonisers of Wales. I mean, it's just so insulting.
They're not the only ones either.
No, of course not.
There are endless numbers of groups you can find around Europe in the same situation.
Yeah, like the Basques.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Catalonians.
Yeah. You know, and like there are little like mountain peoples. Like I can't remember any of the names of them, but they're always, you know, in these weird little mountain enclaves around the Alps and the Pyrenees and stuff. And it's like, no, you don't care. You don't matter. You don't matter because you're not brown, which is basically what an indigenous person is in this schematic.
But then none of these people are brown either. It's like the Romany.
Yeah.
It's Romany anymore, even among the travelers. And it's just like, none of these people are white by any white's definition. That's true as well.
Oh, jeez, who knows? Like, who bloody knows?
Are these brown people? Are these brown children?
Like, does that matter? Like, how would you know?
Not to us, but like to the UN. Yeah. Like, what else are they basing this all on?
How would you know these aren't just Scandinavians? You know, like how are these not?
Oh, the language is less understandable.
Have you ever spoken to anyone from any of these regions?
Yeah, jag talar svenska.
Exactly. Absolute gibberish. But anyway, moving on. Let's go to Mother Jones. Watch Sami reindeer herders grapple with the changing Arctic. So, of course, climate change is going to make the Arctic less terrible. And so warming is threatening the ways of Europe's last indigenous people.
It doesn't make sense.
Go on.
Because one thing I know about studying Russian politics is that they're actually quite happy about the warming because it's making a lot more of the land, usable and also
but they're
accessible.
Snow farmers, Callum, and if their snow melts...
Yes, I forget that they sell all that snow, like the Saudi Arabians sell sand.
Yes.
Oh no, Saudi Arabia is becoming green. What were we doing? Climate change is destroying Saudi Arabia.
As the Arctic warms four times faster than the global average, Europe's only indigenous population is under threat. So why? What's going to happen? The reindeer are going to be like, nah, it's not cold enough, man. I'm just going to die. That's just what happens.
Oh no, this heat wave.
Yeah. Oh God, I've got food. I just don't, but I love
start planting carrots and there's just like sad music playing.
But the whole thing is like, look, climate change is bad, but now it's affecting the reindeer herders. So I don't care about the reindeer herders.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.